All right, welcome in another episode of Verdicts and Vibes. Thank you guys so much for checking us out as you do every week. We appreciate you. My name is Melissa Iannuzzo. I am a 30-year radio veteran in the city of Boston, morning radio for over 20 years. I am alongside the entertainment attorney extraordinaire. I always call you that. I don't even know what that means. I just know that you are one of the best at what you do. And there's Chris Brown, everybody.
I appreciate that, sis. Chris Brown, the lawyer in the building. Hope everybody is wonderful out there today.
We were making fun of you, not you per se, but on air this week when Chris Brown, the singer, was making headlines.
Yeah.
When a girl was brought up on stage during his show and she was making out with him in front of her husband. So
yeah, I saw that. I was hoping it wasn't real. I was hoping it was fake.
Yeah, it still might be. I mean, we don't know for sure if they were married, but we were talking about it on air and Ramiro kept bringing up, no, not lawyer Chris Brown, singer Chris Brown. But anyways, this podcast is going on. Do you remember, Chris, how long ago we started this? Has it been a year yet?
No, I want to say we started in like July of 2005, I think.
Well, let's keep that on our radar because we do have an anniversary that's going to be coming around the corner.
Around the corner.
So we'll figure out a way we can celebrate that. But this week, please, I'm always down for that. This week, we got a couple of big lawsuits. Well, one lawsuit, and then we have one trial that has been making headlines. And the first one we're going to discuss is the lawsuit against Taylor Swift. And this one has been making a lot of headlines because it's Taylor Swift. But bottom line, she's being sued over her album Life of a Showgirl 2025. I will say I'm not a Swiftie by any means. But this album, I gotta say, I like it. The songs I've heard,
really?
Chris, I know it's shocking, but I really do. It's a great album. But she's being sued for trademark infringement because of this album. And I am going to ask you some questions about trademark infringement, as I am not 100% versed on what exactly trademark infringement is.
Okay.
And then we're going to talk about the trial that's making headlines. And that's the one where a man is being, first of all, what is going on with men killing their wives? Like what? Or trying to kill their wives? What is going on? The man.
I do recall us doing a case where a wife actually killed and poisoned her husband.
Oh yes, that's true. Corey Richins.
Yeah, let's not get it twisted now.
No, I'm not saying it's
both ways.
Just right. I know, I get it, but for whatever reason, these trials make such big headlines. And the one we're talking about this week is the one out of Hawaii, where Gerhard Koenig, who is an anesthesiologist living in Maui, is being charged with attempted murder for trying to kill his wife while they were hiking. And this trial is getting so bizarre. I mean, the son testified. It's just ugly. So we're going to get into both of these. Do you have any insight on the Hawaii trial before we jump into Maverick?
As to what I have seen, and I remember, I wanted to talk about this case when I sent it to you because I was like, this is out of hand. This is nuts. So, yeah, I have my opinion after I watched the wife's testimony and then the witness who actually saved her, called 911. Yeah, there's a lot going on here.
All right, well, we'll get into that. Of course, we're going to play our theme song. Maverick Money Mav is going to perform the Verdicts and Vibes theme song.
Let's go,
Of course, Verdicts and Vibes, where we separate the facts
from the fame.
Gentlemen, it's Verdicts and Vibes. This is Verdicts and Vibes. We got time today. Let's talk lawsuits, let's talk crimes. Who got sued now? Who's dead wrong and who's right? Who got paid and who's getting jail time?
As always, we thank Money Mav for his rendition of the Verdicts and Vibes theme song. We love you, Mav. We appreciate you. You are extremely talented. All right, let's get into this week's episode, and we're first going to discuss the Taylor Swift lawsuit. And Chris, we have discussed celebrity lawsuits in the past, where many of them you feel like are brought unjustly just because of the name of the celebrity. Before we discuss this in detail, do you feel like this is what's going on here?
In the Taylor Swift case, I don't necessarily think that that's what's going on. I think that this is more of an overzealous plaintiff that is concerned that she's going to be shut out. I don't see this as being malicious, where in the past I have seen elements in cases where I'm like, this is malicious. But I don't think there's a maliciousness attached to this. I think this is fear, to be honest with you.
Okay.
And I can understand the fear.
I actually agree with you. I think for once we agree on something. So to give everybody the rundown here, Taylor Swift is being sued over her album, her 2025 album, Life of a Showgirl, by a showgirl. Her name is Marin Wade. Now, Marin has a podcast. It's called Confessions of a Showgirl. She's had that since 2014. And the bottom line is she just feels like that this Taylor's album could be confused, or her podcast could get drowned out, kind of like what you said, because of Taylor's album Life of a Showgirl. Now she's concerned it might look like to fans that don't know that she copied Taylor Swift, even though she had the podcast first in 2014. It could damage her brand and her career. And I don't know, do you agree with her on that?
No. I don't agree with her, because I don't think anyone in their right mind at this point of Taylor Swift's career is going to confuse her with Marion Wade. I just don't see it. But I am sympathetic to her, because I actually have represented a small trademark owner before, and their mark was I'll call it in the entertainment space.
Okay. And
that same mark was subsequently used by a very, very big developer.
Oh.
In order to brand a building, a hotel. A very same mark. Do I believe that building actually liked the mark of my client? Yes. Do I believe they saw it? Yes.
Interesting.
However, you can have a very similar mark in different areas of commerce and it not be infringing. It's very similar to what we were talking about in the Patrick Mahomes.
I was going to ask you about that
case.
With the 1587 sneaker company.
Correct. So in that case, they actually didn't even object to my client keeping her mark. They just didn't want to be sued because they felt it was in a very different form of commerce. And they were utilizing that particular mark to brand buildings, whereas my client was using the mark associated with entertainment ventures. They both can coexist at the same time. Now, this case is a bit different to me because, one, it's not even really the same thing. This trademark of Confessions of a Showgirl, I guess we should first talk about what the difference is between a trademark and a copyright.
Please, because that was one of my questions.
A trademark is kind of like it's a symbol, a word, a phrase that you register and you utilize it, to identify services or a product of a company, kind of like Coca-Cola.
Okay.
We all know Coca-Cola when we see Coca-Cola. It's a registered mark. It identifies the goods. You know exactly what you're going to get when you open that can. Now, a copyright, it's more of when you create an original work and you can distribute that original work. It's music, it's literary works, it's songs, it's films. So it's a very, very different thing. So now when you look at this case, Confessions of a Showgirl is a registered trademark. Now, Taylor Swift's album, The Life of a Showgirl, one, it's different wording, and two, titles of albums typically are not even protectable. Songs titles are not protectable. There are many, many, many songs with the very same title. You have albums that have the very same title. I believe this is just a woman that is being a bit overzealous, but I also think this is a bit of marketing.
You know what? I'd say brilliant marketing.
Yeah. Hey, guys, come look over here. I'm not going to get this many eyes if I don't sue Taylor Swift.
I had never heard of it.
Never even heard of her before this.
Never heard of it till now.
And I've been to Vegas many, many times.
Right.
Never heard of this woman. Now, are people now going to maybe listen to her podcast, try to figure out what's going on, maybe look at what her brand is, and it may be a brilliant marketing stunt. She may never even serve Taylor Swift. I have no idea.
Okay, well, but what about the other piece of information we haven't mentioned yet, that Taylor supposedly filed an application for a trademark and was denied, saying that it was too similar to the existing trademark Confessions of a Showgirl by Marion Wade. So she actually went to try and do this the right way, but was denied. From what you see, is that accurate?
Well, what we do know is a company called TSS Rights Management, which I believe is linked to Taylor Swift, but if it's not, it's not. They did file a application for Life of a Showgirl, seeking to sell multiple goods in different categories. It was sound recordings, it was guitar picks, it was musical instruments. Sounds like Taylor's company, but who knows? They also wanted to do jewelry and journals and art prints and lithograms. So whoever did register or attempted to register the Life of a Showgirl trademark, that application was literally suspended in like the last 30 days. So it could mean that they're not trying to pursue it. I have no idea. Or they want to go about it a different way. You know, there are lots of applications that for whatever reason you abandon. I actually have abandoned trademark applications in the past because I need to do something different.
Okay.
You know, so you can run into a wall sometimes with the trademark office. And then if you want to go a different way, you can try to seek protection from the Copyright Office if you think copyright law is applicable. Now,
how can this affect Marion Wade's lawsuit, if at all?
It's not going to affect in any way. They don't know why it was abandoned or suspended, but if they choose to go to a deposition and ask those questions, that could come up and we could get a very interesting response.
Yeah.
If that is in fact the case. However, do I still think that Life of a Showgirl branding is overwhelmingly familiar to Confessions of a Showgirl? I'm unsure of that.
Well, have you seen, this is the other piece, and I'm not sure if you've seen it, the album cover compared to the branding images for Confessions of a Showgirl? Very similar.
Huh.
Very similar. But you know what? That's not even neither here nor there. I don't think it's really important. I think
it is important because
is it? Okay, so let me show you.
It can go to the similarities. It can go to why something is deemed similar, you know. But it becomes how Mark. I'm
currently showing Chris the album cover for Life of a Showgirl.
Yeah.
Okay, keep going, Chris, and then I'll show you.
You know, but it goes to also how famous is this Confessions of a Showgirl? Because frankly, I've never heard of Miss Wade before this lawsuit. Have I heard the saying Confessions of a Showgirl before? Yeah. Was it a movie? Was it something else? If that's Taylor Swift here on the left and Marion Wade on the right, that to me is in no way similar. But
it's not like exactly the same, but like here's a better side by side of the two images. I think that they are similar visually as far as the lighting, the coloring, and stuff like that. But is it enough? I mean,
I don't think it's enough. I don't think anyone is going to confuse the name of an album that clearly maintains her face on it, and going to somehow interpret that Marion Wade is in some way responsible for that particular music or that particular cover or that particular anything.
Okay.
You know, I just don't see it. Now, obviously, Miss Wade has every right to protect,
absolutely,
you know, her trademark. I would do the same thing in an attempt to protect my trademark. Do I think that she's overreaching here? Yeah.
Okay.
Do I think that this is infringement? I don't believe that it's infringement because it's not as if, from what I have looked at associated with Marion Wade, I don't think that this is something that is musical. From watching her brand, I know she has a podcast. You know, I know she actually had a cabaret show. but she's in no way a musical artist. So I don't think that, even if Taylor had utilized Confessions of a Showgirl and put that on her album, I don't name that as her album. I don't think that would even infringe on the trademark
Interesting. Okay.
of a podcast or someone who's doing a cabaret show. It is a title of an album. It clearly identifies who is performing on that album. So
I'm going to play, I don't mean to cut you off, Chris, but if I don't get this out, I'm going to play devil's advocate here.
Okay.
If I'm Marin Wade and I have a podcast, Confessions of a Showgirl, and now here comes the biggest artist on the planet with an album with a very similar title, I'm going to definitely feel like I'm being drowned out, because who now is ever, even people that listen to her podcast, is ever going to, I don't want to say give her credit, but you know what I mean? Who is going to think of her podcast first now, hearing this album?
Well, I have no idea how successful her podcast was before this. When I did look at it online on YouTube, my thought was it's not something in my mind that I would call a very successful podcast. Mm-hmm. Other people may feel differently about it. But for me, I didn't look at it as a very successful podcast. But that doesn't mean she doesn't have the right to do it. That doesn't mean she doesn't have the right to grow it. She could eventually become the best podcaster on the freaking planet. I don't know how that's going to turn out. And I took it as she feels she will be drowned out.
Right.
And her opportunity to continue to grow the podcast could become more and more narrow.
I 100% agree.
I mean, so do I look at this as her being malicious? No, I don't see it at all.
But what can be done now? You know what I mean? I feel like it's too late. This Confessions of a Show, the Life of a Showgirl album is just astronomical as far as success.
Well, and that's going to be part of the problem.
Right.
Why did you wait so long to sue her?
Right.
She had this album out. She's toured the album to some of the biggest audiences around the world. And now after that, you are finally saying, I think I want to file litigation. Well, there's nothing you can do about it. At this point, if you think that any court is going to make Taylor Swift change the name of her album,
that's my point. Like,
it's just not going to happen.
And you know what though? You can't blame a girl for trying. You can't. And like you said, you and I both have now heard of Confessions of a Showgirl, the podcast.
Now, from a marketing perspective,
we have not.
Genius.
Yes, exactly.
Genius.
And you know what? If that's all she wanted to accomplish, then girl, bravo.
Now you
did it.
Now you have your 15 minutes of fame because of Taylor.
Yep.
Keep it moving.
I love it. And there you go. Thank you, Chris, as always, for your expertise. We're going to take our first break here and come right back and get into the anesthesiologist allegedly trying to kill his wife in Hawaii. That trial is just bananas. We'll be right back on this week's episode of Verdicts and Vibes.
Let's go.
And we're back. And this trial, the Gerhard Koenig second-degree attempted murder trial. You've probably seen it. It's been covered in major outlets. It's been on every major news organization the last couple weeks. The trial is underway. The prosecution, as of the recording of this podcast, the prosecution has rested. So now we're going to get ready to hear the defense witnesses. But to give you a quick recap, in case you haven't heard of this case yet, Gerhard Koenig I believe he's still married, yes, to his wife, Ariel. And apparently Gerhard, became aware of some potential cheating going on.
Yeah.
With his wife and another person. So
that's what they talked about in this trial.
That is what they talked about.
I don't know if that's grounds for trying to bust your wife's head open.
Okay, well, you're getting a little ahead of me here.
But
back in March of 2025, Gerhard and his wife Ariel were hiking in Hawaii. It was a hiking trail in Oahu. It was called like the Puakapua. I keep calling it that because the Puakapua Trail. It was a very scenic trail, beautiful. And apparently, at some point during this hike, they got into some kind of argument, And according to witnesses and from what Ariel herself said in her testimony, he tried to push her off a cliff. When that didn't succeed, picked up a rock, tried beating her with it, and then allegedly tried to inject her with a syringe, although a syringe was never found at the scene. One was found in his bag, but was never found at the scene. So what happened next? And if, and in my opinion, if these two witnesses hadn't come forward, this would be a much more difficult case to solve. But there were two witnesses who saw Ariel after and heard her screaming, called 911, and were there to help her medically. We're trying to like wrap her head up in a bandage and was just trying to legit help her through. Called 911. Gerhardt fled the scene, but was later captured. And we are now in the middle of the trial where he is now being charged with second-degree attempted murder. What is the difference between first degree and second degree? And I know each state has their own.
Each
I know Hawaii
different.
is actually different than Massachusetts too.
Yeah.
They're very different.
And frankly, I can't sit here and tell you that I know Hawaiian law and the difference between what will be first degree and second degree. I'm going to assume that one of them involves a premeditation.
Okay.
That's not what he's being charged with here. Yes, it's my understanding that he's being charged with second degree.
Okay.
Attempted murder. But it's kind of weird to me because the allegation is he actually had a syringe.
Right, which wouldn't that tell you
would
premeditation?
show me a level of premeditation.
Absolutely.
So don't know the answer. Hawaii got some explaining to do, but I'm here for it.
So we could talk about some of the testimony that we've heard so far. So Ariel, the wife, actually testified herself. The son of Gerhardt, and I know I'm probably saying his name wrong, so I apologize, but G's son testified. Now we have to specify here. G and Ariel were married, but Ariel was not the son's mother. She was his stepmother. Okay, so that makes it a little more interesting that you have a son on the stand testifying against you, and it wasn't even his own biological mother. That makes it a little bit more interesting to me. So he was brought on the stand by the prosecution and testified that his father called him and admitted and confessed.
Yeah, that's what he said.
And said, I'm not going to be home for a long time. Take care of, your siblings. And I tried to kill Ariel.
Yeah.
She was cheating on me, blah, blah, blah.
That's what happened.
I would say that's a very damning piece of evidence.
Yeah, that's that. You cooked. In my opinion, you're cooked. Now, the defense tried to characterize it as their client just being over emotional. You know something? There's an element of law and evidence where we call it the excited utterance, which means you said it because things were just so real. It was just so what's the best way to describe it? It was happening. It was so surreal. It was such a big moment that those types of statements are admitted as evidence, or a dying man's last words. Those things are admitted as evidence. They are exceptions to various rules of evidence in state court and federal court. When you know that you were just in a very emotional situation, a fight where you almost killed somebody, and now you're on the phone and you're basically telling your son, take care of everybody. I tried to kill Ariel. I mean, that is so damning. That is going to come in every time. I don't see how you get around that. Obviously, the defense's perspective is going to be he was just too emotional, that you can't take that at face value. Actually, it's completely the other way. You have to take it at face value because he was so emotional. He didn't have to, it wasn't contrived. It's not as if this is something that is a premeditated conversation from the day before. This is absolutely real to me. But even more real than that statement is the witness who actually saw what you were doing, who could hear her screaming, who could hear the wife yelling for help, who tried to protect her, who got her down off the trail. The video that shows her bloody face.
They happen to be nurses too. I find that very interesting. The two witnesses happen to be nurses.
This whole situation is, you going to jail, buddy. You going to jail.
So you think this is one of the, I know there's no such thing as an open and shut case, but if you were going to say there was an open and shut case, this might be the closest thing.
He going to jail. They got more than enough evidence.
Even
now,
let me ask you this: if the two, like I mentioned earlier,
he's not going to testify. I tell you that now because I know that's your next question.
No, that wasn't.
I know that's your
not
next.
Yet, but
he
is
not going to testify.
No, but if the
too many bad things can happen.
If the two nurses, the two witnesses, let's just say there were no witnesses, and now it's her word against his. You don't have a syringe.
I still
Does
have
it get
you
a little more
bashing
interesting?
her head in with a rock.
Okay.
Maybe you threw the syringe away before the people came up.
But what about self-defense?
You're on top of her, bashing her head in with a rock.
Okay.
This is not a
I always
woman.
I always try to play devil's advocate and just try to figure this out. Go ahead.
If the testimony is that she is in her spare time, she's a jiu-jitsu expert or she is an MMA fighter, which I am not expecting to come in. She is not those things. This is, in many respects, a petite woman who he has a strength advantage over, and he is on top of. If you only want to restrain her, you're on top of her. Restrain her. You don't have to pick up the rock and bash her head in. That's going too far. That's not self-defense. You could have just restrained her. You clearly demonstrated that you could have restrained her. But you didn't. So I don't see any of this leading to a not guilty verdict. You were caught with the rock. You have the testimony of your son. You have the two witnesses.
The witnesses and the son.
You have the two witnesses there. You have the witnesses calling firsthand 911. He's trying to kill her. They can hear it all. Mm-hmm. Now, if you want to somehow sit here and say, well, she cheated, my bad, she had it coming, yeah, that's not going to work. That's not a viable defense. What else you got?
No. But, okay. Jury deliberation.
Yeah.
If you had to make a prediction here.
A day.
You are so dead set on this is it, it's over. Like a whole day or just a couple hours? Because I'm thinking if it's this open and shut, a couple hours might suffice.
They may want lunch and a free dinner. A day. A day. When this is over, a day.
Oh my God.
Yeah. That's where I'm at with it.
How many? Okay, so again, with the question of he's 100% not going to testify.
Yeah, I don't think he's testifying.
What other defense witnesses could we hear from?
I have no idea. But I'll say this. She was very compelling on the witness stand, the wife. The nurse with the 911 call. She doesn't even have a dog in the fight.
Right. I mean,
and she was so so compelling to me.
Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, there's no way that he's going to be found not guilty. Although they're saying this trial could run into mid-April as of today. The recording of this podcast, we're right at the beginning of April. I feel like this should be over by next week.
I don't,
depending on how many witnesses the defense calls.
I don't understand what the defense witnesses would be. You're going to call medical experts to say what?
Right.
You're going to call the cheating husband? The boyfriend?
Yeah.
Okay, call him. So what?
Right.
She was cheating. So what? That has nothing to do with what happened with that rock in your hand, sir. Now, she claimed she saw a syringe. They didn't find the syringe. Okay. This is a hiking trail. There's woods everywhere. If he stands up and throws that syringe, or while he's on her, he throws that, syringe, you could throw that 30, 40, 50 yards. It's a syringe.
Yeah. I mean,
I
love hearing you break this stuff down. We're going to take our second break real quick, though, and wrap this up and then get into trials that maybe you guys might want us to talk about in future episodes of Verdicts and Vibes. We'll be right back. And we're back. So to wrap this up with a nice little bow on top and a little cherry, Gerhard Koenig is going to be found guilty according to the life and predictions of Mr. Christopher Brown. Right? Less than a day deliberation?
I think it's a day of deliberation.
All right.
Yeah.
Day of deliberation.
Yeah. Like I said, lunch and dinner. You know, they got to get their eats on.
And get their cheesesteak subs.
All of that.
And I'm thinking by the time, depending on how many defense witnesses are called, maybe by the recording of this podcast next week, we could have a verdict, but who knows? We will keep you guys posted, of course.
I don't see who's going to testify for him. I mean, your own son dimed you out.
Right. That's so significant. And then as far as future episodes, we're always looking for your feedback, and we have been getting a lot of great feedback, which I really appreciate. We have some things on the horizon that we've been wanting to discuss. Chris, I know you had a few that you had messaged me about last week.
Yeah, I mean, it's always funny to me. You know, I was at this the seafood boil place 2 nights ago, and someone recognized me and was like, "Hey, you know, can you talk about that Bill Cosby case, which you and I had talked about briefly?" And then I had, you know, did some research. I still wanted to discuss some of those Floyd Mayweather cases. You know, I'm like, yeah, this stuff is looking interesting for Floyd. I want to, you know, dive into that.
Okay.
You know, a little bit. I did see that UMG filed their opposition brief last week in the Drake's case.
Appeal. Yes.
You know, so we'll see if oral arguments actually get scheduled on that.
You know what's funny about that is they pretty much came out and said Drake's just mad he lost.
In
That's
many
why
respects,
he's appealing.
Yeah, they said it. But you know, like I said before, see, for me, I have watched so many rap or rap adjacent individuals on trial, and rap lyrics come in for their truth, for motives, you know, to show that this is what they do. So they are taking rap lyrics on their face as truthful when they are having criminal trials and convicting them using rap lyrics. Now we're on the civil side, and now we're saying, those rap lyrics aren't true. You know, that's just, you know, hype stuff. That's just, you know, hyperbole. That's just, you know, really? Well, tell that to the rappers that are being thrown in jail because the rap lyrics are being used against them as truthful statements. You can't have it both ways.
Right.
We can't say that rap lyrics can be used to throw you in jail and are true, and then turn around and say in civil cases, nah, we just gonna give that a pass. It's a rap beef.
Right.
Lots of rappers talk about stuff that they have
yeah.
never experienced. Never.
Yeah.
So for me, I still think that the appeals court is gonna have a very interesting decision to write. And
you even said when the Drake Universal suit was filed, you said he could have a good case in appeal.
Yeah.
So I'm curious to see how it turns out. And they made that
argument.
Yeah.
And they made that argument on appeal.
Okay.
I think it's a very persuasive argument. But let's just see what the justices on the appeals court have to say about it. Well, you know, it's a very interesting panel. The judges, you know, rotate. I've been in that court. I've argued in that Second Circuit. And those judges are tough. And they will spit fire questions at you, and you better be ready. You know, it's happened to me. You know, I've had very good panels in my instances at the appeals court in the Second Circuit. I will say that because my case was so strong there, I think I had 4 questions asked of me from the 3-judge panel, and they just let me talk for the other like 35 minutes. You know, so well, actually, typically you get 10. Yeah. You can ask for more. I didn't literally use all my 35 minutes, but you kind of get out and get in. You know, like, this worked for me. I don't need to say anymore. I'd love to do a future episode on you and just you and the cases that you've had and crazy things that have happened to you in the courthouse. But
well, let's wrap this up. We, on a future episode, seriously, you guys, we want to take your suggestions.
Yeah.
So you can always inbox us. We check our DMs frequently. Instagram, TikTok, Verdicts and Vibes. You can email us on Yahoo at verdictsandvibes@yahoo.com. Please keep subscribing and listening to the podcast. We only grow by you sharing the wealth and sharing the knowledge. Tell your friends. A new episode every Thursday. Chris, it's been a pleasure as always.
Thank you, sis.
Thank you for your knowledge and expertise. We will catch you guys next week with another brand new episode of Verdicts and Vibes where we separate the facts
From the fame.
Have a great week, everybody.
Let's go.